In this lesson, we're going to continue practicing with these 6 observational drawing techniques, but we're going to do it with a more complex still life. So let's review. You always want to start with a quick sketch with the basic shapes without detail, and then we fix up that basic sketch with all of the other 5 techniques. So technique number 2 is finding relationships. Remember, this is locating horizontal and vertical lines to see where one item lines up with another. So where does the bottom of the lamp line up with the bottom of the water pitcher? Where does the bottom of the lampshade line up with the water pitcher? And so on. Number 3 is looking at negative space. Is looking at the gaps between the shapes in the still life and seeing if they match up with what you have in your drawing. Contact points is looking at where one object touches on another object. And then sighting angles is using your pencil to rest on angles between shapes or on actual shapes, and then holding and dropping that angle onto your drawing paper. And number 6, measuring and comparing sizes, is finding something that's smaller as a unit of measurement and comparing everything else to it. So you could use the height of the glass and compare it to everything else inside of the still life, or it could be the width of the glass, but it would be one of the items inside of the still life. Now there are 2 different versions of this worksheet, so you need to figure out which one you have. Either you have a lamp already drawn for you, or you have the empty box. If you have the empty box, you just have a little more drawing that you need to do. So the first thing we need to do is start with a gesture. So remember, a gesture is a quick sketch of the entire still life, but you're trying to get it to be in the right composition, the right proportions, and so this box is smaller and it needs to be enlarged. And so when I'm drawing this, I'm going to be looking at that negative space. Okay, this lamp is pretty close to the edge of this box, and so I'm going to go ahead and just start sketching it in. How close do I think that top is? And then just quickly draw it in. If you are not accurate with this, that is completely okay. We will be fixing these up with all of those techniques later on. And then I see a water glass and a water pitcher. As I'm drawing, you should be drawing, so you should be doing your own sketch right now. And then I will draw the table later. First, I want to worry about moving all these shapes around. So after the gesture, it's a good idea to figure out what you're going to use for your unit of measurement. And I think I just want to use the lampshade. So the lamp will be my first object that I want to get perfect. And then I'm going to work my way out to the glass that's touching it, to the water pitcher, and then my 4th item will be the clock. So glance back at your gesture and see if by looking at negative space you need to move something around. Like, I think that this needs to be a lot closer to the edge. That looks like a good distance. That looks like a good distance. It looks like it's a good size. So the location is okay. Then I'm going to take my unit of measurement and see if I have it accurate. So do I have this length accurate compared to my unit of measurement? So just so we can be clear, and if you're following my demonstration, I'm going to make my unit of measurement from there to there. So the top of the lampshade to the bottom of the lampshade. And then I am going to measure that distance and see how many lampshades high this lamp is. So it is almost, so the base is almost 1 lampshade tall. So I am going to measure my lampshade bottom to top and see if I have the base too long or too short. So that's where one lampshade would be. And there's a little bit of a gap. And that, of course, is going to look smaller because it's a smaller picture. But if that was blown up, does that look about right? A little bit of a gap. I think that I should be okay with this. I think I'm going to keep it where it's at. If you measured your lamp and you didn't have a little bit of a gap, adjust the size of it so that it all works out. So this needs to be a little smaller than one lampshade. You can double check your angles of the shade by resting your pencil on the lampshade. If those weren't accurate when you dropped it down, then change it. Make sure that you don't twist it in the end to fit whatever you had. So the whole time I just rested on the angle. I watch it as I drop it, and then I look and see, okay, is it accurate? Don't let your mind play a trick on you and twist. So fix up your lamp. And then we can go ahead and start on the cup. So a good thing to always start off with is contact points. So let's go ahead and look. On the base of that lamp, how far out is that cup in contact? So I would say from here on the post, it comes out and the cup is somewhere right about there, and then right about here. So the next thing I'm going to do is either measure and compare the size that I have now, or look at negative space. And right now I think that it's more important for me to look at the negative space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this gap between the two shapes. And it kind of looks like an axe with a handle. And when I look at my negative space, I can clearly see how wrong I was. And so from this contact point, I'm going to draw a line up, but as I'm drawing, I'm looking at this shape instead in the negative space. So I'm trying to draw it with that amount of a gap. And then when I draw the top, I'm looking at this part of that axe. Look at how bad mine was. Doesn't even compare. So I now know that this needs to go right about here. And I can draw that part of my cup in. So with that, I know that I am pretty accurate with this line and the top of the cup. But what I don't know is the width of the cup or the length of the cup. So this and this line are in question. So it's going to be hard for me to measure because my unit of measurement is so big, right? If I went like this, it's about half a lampshade. So you could do that. I could measure the lampshade and say, okay, that cup needs to be about halfway. Or I could use finding relationships, where according to where I have the end of the lamp, does it hit in the right location? But do we really know if the width of the lamp is right? So let's double check that before we use this, because it could throw us off. So I'm going to measure the height of the lamp and line it up to the farthest corner. And that's how wide the lamp should be. So I'm going to take my measurement and turn it to the side. And then I should just have a little extra hanging over on the side. If you don't, then the width of your lampshade is too small, so adjust it however you need to. So again, I just double checked because I forgot earlier. The width of the lampshade, it ended there. I take my new measurement of my lampshade that I drew, and from the corner of the lampshade, see if it's similar. Make your adjustments. And then now I feel more comfortable with dropping a line down. So after you adjusted it from the corner of your lampshade, drop that line down. And then look at how much space hangs over on the right-hand side. I feel like I might have a little bit too much space on mine going off that side. So I'm going to make this oval just a little bit smaller. So just a little bit's hanging off the other side of that line. So if I know that that is pretty much right there, according to the width of the lampshade, I'm going to set an angle for the cup. And I'm going to double check this, because I could have lost that when I picked up my pencil. So I'm going to line it up, check this side, and do it one more time. Don't press too hard, because then this part of the pencil will drag and shift your angle. So that's right. And then check your other side. And that's pretty right. The last thing that I don't know about is how long to make this cup. So I'm going to go back to my unit of measurement from the top of the lampshade to the bottom of the lampshade, and I'm going to see how tall it is compared to my unit of measurement. So taking that measurement, top of lampshade to bottom of lampshade, and then how tall is the cup? So it is exactly 1 lampshade tall. So then I'm going to measure from the top of my lampshade to the bottom of my lampshade, drop it down to my cup. So I'm lining my thumb up on the top of my cup and making a mark. That is where I need to draw the bottom of my cup. So again, all I did was see how tall the cup was according to the lampshade, and then see how tall my cup needs to be according to the lampshade. So exactly the same. So now I'm just looking at these 2 items, making sure I'm good, double checking my negative space. This shape right here should look like that same shape up above. And then we can move on to object number 3. There really isn't a contact point. This is not touching that cup, so we can't use that. But what should we use next? How can we get started? Should we look at negative space? How tall is it? Where does the bottom go? So I would say, looking at this, it might be helpful to draw a line over, find a guideline, also known as a relationship, and I'm drawing this straight over. And I'm comparing that when I draw that line to the bottom of the box so I can stay nice and straight. And then where does it hit according to this bottom of the lampshade? And corner of my lampshade. And that could give me a good start on where to place this. So these 3 lines need to be repeated on my drawing. So we had 1 line at the bottom of the lamp, 1 line at the bottom of the lampshade, and 1 line at the corner. So go ahead and add those. And now I feel like we can go ahead and draw from negative space. So let's look at this shape right here as we draw. And it gets really close to that cup, but it's kind of going at an angle up to this point. And then how close does this oval get to that lampshade? So let's look at that distance. A little bit of a distance here. So it's somewhere right around there. So again, you're making an oval between these, but you're looking at that distance. You don't want it too close, not too far away, just kind of look at that gap. And you're looking at the gap between it and the cup. I'm going to double check my angle that I drew. So I'm setting my angle, and it's right. If yours wasn't right, fix it to be the right angle. So now I'm pretty confident that these are in the right locations, but I don't know if I have the right width. So I could go ahead and take a measurement from the lampshade. So go ahead and do that. And see how wide it is. So that would be 1 lampshade wide right there. So let's repeat that. Take a measure of your lampshade. And it was right there. Does that gap look kind of accurate? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit bigger because this is bigger, but does it look like a good amount of space that's similar to this? And I think so. Then we can go ahead and draw on the bottom because we know the bottom's going to end up on this line. And we can sight this angle right here. Mine was a little bit too straight. Every time I get done drawing it, I always go back and I double check in case I forgot. And that's the amount of detail I want to put right in for the picture at this point. I don't want to put in the handle. I don't want to put in the water. That will all come last. Now remember, as you get to the object that's farthest away, that's when inaccuracies kind of add up. So any little minor mistakes that you might have not taken care of here is going to affect that last object the most. So if this doesn't fit on right, you might have to make some adjustments. Maybe this was too wide. That would probably be our biggest guess right now, is the width of that. So you might have to shorten that up, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and double check one more time the width of this, because that's still our biggest question, because that's kind of a big guess. So I know that the width of this glass is probably pretty accurate at this point. So we can go ahead and measure one width of the glass and see where that hits. And does that look similar? Yeah, I think so. So we're ready to move on. So the next thing that we can do for number 4 is look at contact points. So where is this clock hitting on the corner of this water pitcher? So it's kind of hitting here and here. How far down below does it go? Below that water pitcher. We could put another guideline here, and that corner takes place in between there. So we're really trying to focus on getting this corner in the right location. We could do another guideline going across and seeing where it hits on the cup and the lamp. So it hits right in the middle of the base of the lamp. Let's see. So that's telling me I was way too high according to where I placed that. So I could shorten that up. And then it pokes past a little bit. So knowing where this ends, and this ends, I am going to sight angles. I'm going to sight this angle, and this angle. So making sure that this stuck out just a little bit, that's kind of a lot, so let me go a little less. And this came down and stuck below this a little bit. Let's go ahead and get started with these angles. So rest it on the angle, drop it down, memorize it, and draw it. Gonna double check it, and then do the next one. Looks good. And then the third angle. And that looks good too. So where do we go from here? How am I going to figure out where this part of the clock is going to end up? So now I think we should go back to measuring. If I measured one lampshade and put it on that farthest corner, it ends up about right there. So this one lampshade goes from that corner to right about here. So I'm going to repeat that and see if I have something that looks similar. So I know that this part of the box needs to be about this far away from that mark I just made. So doing a little bit of a guess. So this is at a little bit of an angle. So it's not horizontal, it is like this. And then I'm also looking at the negative space to help me. So right here I don't have a lot of negative space. So that doesn't look like enough compared to here, and this doesn't look like it is close enough to here. So let me drop that down, and that's going to tell me something's wrong up here. And this is where you have to go back and forth and make some adjustments. So I need more negative space right here. I'm going to move this box over just a little bit. And then if it's not working out for you, you can double check some of your lines. Make sure that those are accurate. If there's not enough room for you, you might have made this a little bit too wide, and you might need to make that a little bit skinnier. The last thing you need to do is add the table, which is very simple. So you find the base of your lamp. Let's look at the contact point. It's right about here. It's going to go out nice and horizontal, and just a little bit past the lamp. Sight an angle, double check that angle, and then this just goes vertically down. Look at the contact point for the other part of the table, and then sight the angle to see if you got that right. Now that everything is in the right location and is in proportion to each other, you can finally go ahead and start adding all of the smaller details. Once you're done, I want you to look really hard and try to find your original gesture. Where did you think the items should have gone at the beginning? So if I look really hard, I see my original glass was in the wrong location, and the water pitcher and the clock were all not drawn correctly, and it's much more accurate. So hopefully through this tutorial, you are able to see how valuable these techniques are, because they give you answers. Instead of one big guess of where you think they should go, these give you the clues to guide you to the correct location. So in the future, when you're drawing objects from observation in real life, make sure you keep including these techniques. With practice, they will become easier and easier for you to use.